guys, LunaSpawn27 here, bringing you Bleach, chapter 631, Friend. So the majority of this chapter was basically the flashback on how Haschwalth and Bazz-B first met, but every now and then we would cut back to Bazz-B and Haschwalth fighting against each other in the Warwelt palace. So in their fight, Bazz-B was using Burner Finger 2, but Haschwalth was able to dodge, run along the pillars, getting ready to unsheath his sword, while Bazz-B pulls out his crossbow, or I believe it was called a Heiliger Bogen or something like that. And then when we get back to their fight in the flashback, Bazz-B already blasted a hole in the castle, and Haschwalth suggests that they would fight outside to avoid causing any further damage to the palace. But Bazz-B just activates Burner Finger 3, and Haschwalth was getting ready to go on the defensive, and that's pretty much it on the fight. Now, in the flashback, it was shown how Haschwalth and Bazz-B first met and became friends. It begins with Haschwalth as a kid hunting for a rabbit, but his arrow missed. However, Bazz-B shows up wearing this funny-looking Trojan Spartan outfit, stealing his kill. When asked who he was, Bazz-B wanted Haschwalth to introduce himself first, but either way, he still said his name. So, yeah, that's basically how they first met and introduced themselves. At the beginning, Bazz-B insulted Haschwalth, saying that he sucked at hunting, but he assumed that he was being very crafty to make him give out his name first. So he decides to follow him around to watch over him, just because he couldn't think Haschwalth could successfully hunt any game. Yeah, at the beginning, he was insulting Haschwalth at first, but he kind of realized how much of an asshole he was being, especially when Haschwalth said that he couldn't make a Heiliger Bogen, a sacred bow, just like Bazz-B. Bazz-B did try to comfort Haschwalth, saying that it was not hopeless, and the only reason he was able to create a sacred bow was because he was a natural genius. Yeah, it turns out that Bazz-B was the natural genius and not Haschwalth. I always assumed it was Haschwalth, not the other way around, but yeah, that's a surprise right there. So Bazz-B gets to know more about Haschwalth. Apparently he hates being called Jugo, to which was the name Bazz-B was calling him, and Haschwalth didn't have any parents, so he lived with his uncle. Haschwalth had to hunt at least one rabbit before he had to go home, and Bazz-B noticed a couple bruises on his arms. Putting two and two together, he decides to give Haschwalth his rabbit, saying that he only hunts just to flaunt his skills. But in actuality, he felt bad for Haschwalth because it was implied that his uncle was abusive towards Haschwalth. But before he leaves, he gives Haschwalth one of his buttons, saying that from now on, he'll be one of his followers. He'll teach him everything he needs to know, and don't pay any mind to what the adults say to him. They're going to become the strongest Quincy's out there. Haschwalth was very happy with Bazz-B's words, but after he left, Haschwalth heard a voice saying, "Oi, Jugo," which turns out to be his uncle, and we don't really see what his uncle looks like, but from the way he was talking, not only was he abusive towards Haschwalth, but it seems to be implying that he molested him as well, especially when he said, "my adorable little Jugo." I'm not exactly sure if that is true or not, but if it is, then poor Haschwalth, he's got a really messed up uncle. And the only reason he was there is because he didn't want Haschwalth to wander so deep into the forest, saying that he couldn't survive out there without him. Well, gee, no wonder Haschwalth was sad. It seems that because of his abusive uncle, he doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. The flashback then continues 6 months after Bazz-B met Jugo. Yhwach, who was over 200 years old during the time, was trying to conquer all the territories that the Quincy's resided in using his power. And it turns out that he was the one that burned Bazz-B's castle where him and his family lived. We don't know what happened to his family, but we can assume that all of his family died in the fire. Not only that, but the fire also burned the forest where Haschwalth and his uncle lived. And it turns out that the uncle died in the fire. So both Bazz-B and Haschwalth want revenge, and by doing that, they're going to try to kill Yhwach. So they had to live off with whatever money they could find in the burned down palace, and they spent many days training. During the time, they came to an agreement that in order to kill Yhwach, they would have to earn his trust first. We then cut to 5 years later, and Yhwach has already conquered all of the Lichtreich, which means Kingdom of Light in German, but he was talking with one of his subordinates, Sternritters, and even though I didn't know who this Quincy was at first, he looked familiar, and then it came to me that he appeared in chapter 509 when the fake Yhwach, I think it was like Lloyd, or is it Lloyd, I'm not sure, but one of the Lloyd brothers disguised as Yhwach, who fought against Yamamoto when he activated Zanka no Tachi South. And Sternritters was one of the Quincy's faces that appeared in one of the corpses. So if that is the case, then this flashback might have taken place before the Quincy's fought against the Shinigami 1,000 years ago, which by the way, Soul Society happens to be the next place that Yhwach wants to conquer. And in order to do that, Yhwach needs a new power. And for that, he needs to create a new vanguard called the Sternritter, and that is where the chapter ends. So yeah, that is Bleach chapter 631. What did I think? I thought this was a good chapter, and I was iffy at first about the flashback, but reading it was definitely interesting, and I'm so glad that we're getting Bazz-B and Haschwalth's backstories. I've always wanted to know more about the Sternritters, and unfortunately, the closest thing we have ever gotten to a backstory was Asnod's. So seeing this flashback was not only refreshing, but it was also interesting because we get to learn a little bit more about Yhwach. Before the first Quincy invasion, he was trying to reclaim all the lands that the Quincy's resided in. And it looks like that next week we're going to see the origins of the Sternritters, which is great because I wonder who else was part of the original Sternritters aside from Haschwalth and Bazz-B. And if we're lucky, we might get to see the war that happened 1,000 years ago and see the original Gotei 13 fight against the Quincy's. Meaning that we'll not only see Yamamoto back in his prime, but also Unohana and whoever else was part of the original Gotei 13. I have a theory that Ichibei might have been part of the original Gotei 13 because he also knew about Yhwach, so maybe we might get to see a younger Ichibei or something before he became part of the Royal Guard. However, I'm not sure how much will be shown in this flashback because this is all in Bazz-B's perspective. Seeing how Haschwalth and Bazz-B became friends was actually pretty cool, but considering how things are going right now, Haschwalth seems incredibly loyal to Yhwach. So it makes me wonder if he's still going along with the plan to get closer to Yhwach, gain his trust, and then kill him, or during that time he changed his mind and decided to stay at Yhwach's side. I mean, after all, he was the one that killed his abusive, molesting uncle, so maybe he was grateful to Yhwach and remained at his side. If that's not the case and he's still going along with the plan to kill Yhwach, then I can't help but feel like this is gonna end up like Gin and Aizen all over again, and I don't know if I'd like that or not. As for Bazz-B, I still don't know if he was still going along with the plan to kill Yhwach, but it seems that ever since the Ashwalin, he decided to kill Yhwach again. So, was he still going along with his plan, or did he change his mind as well? Well, whatever it is, something must have happened between Bazz-B and Haschwalth, and we'll probably know what it is next week. So tell me guys, what'd you think of this week's chapter of Bleach? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What'd you think of the flashback so far? And any ideas as to what made Haschwalth or Bazz-B change their minds on killing Yhwach? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like the video if you like it and subscribe to more videos, and be sure to check out my Facebook fan page and Google+. So yeah, that is Bleach chapter 631. I'm LunaSpiralm27, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.